Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm David Penn, research analyst with Finovate. We're here at Finovate Fall in New York, and joining me is Casey Ferguson. He is Vice President of Marketing with Zoot Enterprises. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, David.
I thought maybe to start us off, you could tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do at Zoot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're excited to be here at Finovate Fall. I lead the marketing function at Zoot, so across product, sales, a lot of go-to-market, speaking with customers, coming to great conferences like this. Help us stay connected, to what's happening out in the wild. So at Zoot, every day the teams are looking for ways to help bring data together to form instant decisions for our customers across banks, retailers, credit unions, you name it. Wherever there's kind of a mission critical decision to be made, Zoot's there. So we're excited to be here.
Excellent. We're happy to have you here at Finovate as well. I thought you wanted to talk about some of the things that Zoot is up to in terms of modernization, fraud, these sorts of things. When it comes to modernization, a huge issue here at Finovate, why is a phased approach an optimal approach when it comes to dealing with legacy systems?
Yeah, absolutely. Big question. At Zoot, we sort of look at modernization this way. It's not about tearing everything down. When you look at this kind of rip and replace mentality, you got to remember that it can be pretty risky. It can be very expensive, and it can kind of be slow as well. When you think about the pace of change, architecting the perfect environment, the world may have changed by the time you have a perfect picture of all this. So, working on things incrementally and in phases can really make a difference. So, you can start with really high impact work and build from there, right? Does a couple of things, I think, for companies and organizations, right? There's visible wins early, which matters in the workplace, and just feeling good. Speaking of feeling good, teams stay motivated because they're making progress. And you're layering in modern capability as you go. So you're kind of seeing, it just goes back to the results, right? You're seeing things happen rather than waiting for the perfect kind of architecture. So that's how we look at it. Rip and replace can be kind of risky. There might be a place for it, but sometimes the sink's broken in the kitchen and you just got to fix the sink, not remodel the whole kitchen, right?
In terms of strategies to go ahead and make this modernization process effective and efficient, what are some of the sorts of decisions that have to go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, in the planning cycle here, right, maybe the first thing to consider when you're setting a strategy would be, go modular, right? Pick solutions that are going to slide into your existing stack, not really lock you in a weird way. We live in an ecosystem economy, right? Where everything's cool and interconnected, and it can get done. It can get done easily. So don't lock yourself in with odd vertically integrated items, even in your own business unit, right? You can do better than that. So think modular. While all this creativity is taking place, keep compliance in mind.
Yes.
You've got to be ready for regulatory scrutiny. It's just an important part of the puzzle. So any creative approaches to modernization, make sure they're not really stretching around the regulators.
Don't get too creative.
Yeah, exactly. make sure that's not being swept under the rug, right? Third, I would get together with everybody, right? Business and IT, for example, many others, legal. Everybody needs to get together to really understand what's going on here, right? Because everybody's going to play a part. You can't do it alone. Right. So I think that's maybe the third important strategy, kind of setting moment to have. And then lastly, I would think systems, not features. You mentioned technologists, right? We're all quick to go to features, right? Because we can see, right? We can see the way that features can help us get there. But when you go back to collaborating with other teams or other stakeholders, if you show how it works as part of a system, systems talk together, features don't. So I think looking at it that way is also important. So those would be four things to really, I think, consider from a strategic perspective.
That's really interesting, particularly the last 2 points. It really seems sort of have a common theme of communication. And you said talking to each other, both in terms of individuals and systems talking to each other. So I'm curious, sort of following along that idea of questions as you engage this process. What are some of the questions that maybe you could be exchanged within a team to start to sort of break down the phases of this modernization process?
Sure, yeah. Questions are the best way to get everybody talking, right? Thinking. So, I think, a few that come to mind and that we often encourage our clients to think through are, which processes really matter in a project like this or an initiative like this? Is it revenue? Is it costs? Customer experiences, of course, right? What processes really matter in the whole thing? Second, I would say, looking at those, can you accomplish any improvement there without tearing up the whole stack of technology, right? Just ask yourself the honest, practical question there.
Right.
From a timeline perspective, thinking about, are there some regulatory deadlines or maybe some policy milestones coming up that can help you time, where there's essentially an obligation to get ready for something. Those can be good drivers. And then, I think maybe a fourth question to ask, and this goes back to the collaboration aspect, does leadership, is leadership bought in, right? Is there a clear strategic priority here? I think asking some of those questions, to the working group and the cross-functional groups can kind of keep the modernization roadmap pretty focused, more practical, and kind of rooted in business reality.
One of the huge issues is, that you've talked about is, and we talked about a second ago, was the idea of buying in, making sure everybody feels like they're on board and so forth. One of the things I wanted to move forward to was to talk a little bit about fraud and security, which is another one of the things I think that makes people feel like, okay, everything is not just what we want, but we're safely doing this. We talked about compliance as sort of one of the bogeymen out there. Fraud might be arguably is another one. So what are some of the things that companies and businesses can do to make sure that the tactics, the techniques that they're deploying are actually going to be efficient and work for them to solve the exact problems that they have, as opposed to problems that just might be out there in general?
Sure. Yeah, boy, when it comes to fraud, that's about the fastest paced situation out there, right? So there are a lot of new tools. There's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to if you're a product line of business leader or product leader or a decision maker at a bank or a credit union or any type of organization, it's pretty easy to get trapped in trying to understand all the new fraud typologies that are coming to their market out there, right? These are fraud rings. They're running a business, right? It's pretty sophisticated, so keeping up's hard. As a result, right, a lot of new innovative tools are coming around. So it's very easy for banks to kind of start getting a little bit enamored by the shiny new object. I think in these instances, it's really important to think about how the right tools combined can make a difference, right? So that's where Zoot really comes in and helps, and that's where we have some of the most exciting conversations going, right? It's about layering all these signals from all the top providers, right? Zoot has many established relationships with the people who are on the cutting edge of this, right? They're doing the study, they're on the dark web, right? They're understanding all of these new typologies that banks could be hit with. So when you're working with Zoot and you're modernizing, fraud's usually the top pick. Like, hey, we're getting hit here. Like, we gotta make some moves. So layering all that signal into a defense strategy is really kind of more feasible on day one with Zoot, because we have all the existing connections to all those best of breed players. Layer that strategy, step up over time, right? All these signals for identity, device, behavioral biometric stuff, right? We can combine all that in a cool way to make sure that the fraud fight remains pretty strong.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point about, and it's ironic, you're at a place like Finovate where you're seeing just tons of different sorts of fraud solutions, and you can imagine someone like you said who at the same time is focused on these outcomes, and then they have to look at all these solutions. It's almost like a mismatch in perception. It's like, how do they effectively pick through all of those solutions, given that they're focused on the outcome? It's really an interesting challenge, and I like the way that you pointed out to focusing on that outcome and not getting too enamored with some of the things that look great, but maybe don't fit the particular problem that you've got. So I want to talk about, maybe by way of finishing up, by talking a little bit more about some of the sorts of fraud mitigation strategies that are available. And I'm curious if you could talk to us a little bit about what are some of the things that you think are most effective when it comes to dealing with these sort of things, deploying them for customers.
Sure. I'd kind of summarize it this way. Zoot really connects what others can't. For decades, we've been, unifying data from any source, augmenting, old systems that you might be stuck with or that work, whatever your attitude towards it might be. Cores and all these valuable things that they may not feel the most modern, but they still drive a lot of value, or they're centralized to the operation. Zoot connects all those, right, to make sure that policy workflows, cross silos. All these enterprise grade decisions can happen across lines of business. Without overhauling the whole stack, right? We take a lot of pride in kind of taking a step back from that and saying, hey, let's go back to those questions we kind of talked about, right? The strategic questions, everybody together, some of the priority setting, right? Take a moment, look, step back and kind of say, hey, what's the actual problem here? And are there some things that could be tied together? Because really this is about, insert anything here, but time to value or time to market, crush the fraud component of this whole thing, whatever it may be, right? I think time to value really kind of, or ROI, you know, if you're inside, right? I mean, it really is kind of the driver. So, long story short, I mean, you really just start to see the results faster when you bust this apart. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing we're doing at Zoot, is asking people to take a little step back and see how we can bust this apart to make progress.
Right. It's really interesting, and again, it's really great to talk to you about this, because it really seems like you have often one of two situations: either the afraid to move, oh no, we can't do it because they want us to tear everything apart, or the kid in the candy store sort of thing. And it seems like one of the things that you're really able to convey with Zoot is that neither is what you want to be in, that in both cases, taking that step back, taking that deep breath is really the prudent approach, as opposed to one of those other extremes.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to have both though. And the kid in the candy store, it can be a great squeaky wheel, right?
Sure.
Hey, I found this great new thing, right? They're doing the right stuff. I heard about this new fraud, emerging fraud threat, right? Those kind of thinkers are perfect, right? They're bringing forward really specific problems. Then you've got maybe even C-suite leadership that are driving it, they're seeing losses, right? They're seeing charge-offs, right? Just two angles of many, but like, you got to have it all. And I think that's why it all goes back to getting everybody together to kind of fight it all, fight it at once.
Yeah, excellent. I think a great place for us to leave that on. So again, thank you very much for the conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing a lot more about Zoot.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you as well.